Hello, and welcome to the Edtech podcast. This week, I'm feeling slightly hungover as I presented at Women Ed last night and then got home and overexcitedly drank rather too much wine. Such was the good company and occasion. A big shout out to Women Ed and check out what they are doing on Twitter. Interviews with some really fascinating women leaders in education coming up on the podcast. This week, though, a young gentleman by the name of Jesse Lozano. Jesse is one of the co-founders of PiTop, a low-cost computing device which visualises coding activities on the Raspberry Pi. A disclaimer here is I've just done a bit of work with PiTop, but I conducted this interview as I think what they're doing is truly very interesting. Second disclaimer, in the elevator pitch I mentioned PiTop versus one other tablet brand, but there are clearly many other brands on the high street, etc., which I'm sure you will understand anyway. Basically, imagine a student digs in Bethnal Green, throw in $2 million of recent investment and some of the brightest minds from Oxford, etc. Stir in a CEO who can go full Lozano, and by the way, that's not a pizza, and you have the makings of a very exciting story and definitely a company to watch in the edtech space. Some of you may have come across PiTop at Bett, where it turns out that they built their stand by hand and only finished putting it together at 3 a.m. on the opening day of the show. That is to say, they've got DIY spirit in the DNA of their company. And in this episode, find out why educators and maker enthusiasts are listening to what this under 30-year-old who was on track to be a lawyer has to say. If you enjoy the show, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher or Pocket Cast and leave a review. Here we go. Sat in a warehouse, kind of extended garage, which I believe used to be an MOT garage.
Yeah.
And I'm surrounded by various artifacts, so bits of wood, a photography setup, a pool table, various bicycles, lots of very hard-working people, and also Jesse Lozano.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And Jesse, do you want to tell us what you do?
Cool. So I'm one of the founders of PiTop. At PiTop, we make affordable laptops and desktops out of a new type of computer called the Raspberry Pi.
And to be honest, having just had a little tour of the place here, I'm quite astonished by the sort of activity that's going on here, and I suppose the kind of endless possibilities that are coming out of it. So I'm really intrigued to find out in this interview, how have you got to this point? So you just told me that, you were essentially training, you're on the trajectory to be a lawyer. That was your kind of life calling. Then you did some marketing. And now I'm sat here with an amazing device, which is sort of plugging in with Raspberry Pi, produced in Shenzhen. And you look really young. So how did that all happen?
Yeah, so I'd always intended to be a lawyer, but after whilst I was doing my law degree, I realized that it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and basically, I needed to find something else to do. So I started writing Forex for City.Am in my last year at my law degree. Through that, I became a consultant for various Westminster groups, and ended up kind of being the go-to tech guy for a few Westminster groups. That let me get some experience in the tech field, learn how to do basic things like build websites. But then I wanted to start providing services for my clients, so I started writing basic scripts in Python that made my job easier, which meant I could take on more clients. Then I realized actually what I really like doing is making creating things, but through computing and using programming as a way to create new and interesting ideas. So I managed to get into a London accelerator called Entrepreneur First. Met my co-founder there. We were both pretty interested in Raspberry Pi, and he was like, hey, I'm thinking about making this solar powered Raspberry Pi laptop type thing, and I said, yeah, that sounds cool, man. You should like Kickstarter that, and that's how it started.
And what year was that?
That was that was I think July 2014.
July 2014. Wow. So really quite recently.
Yeah. And we incorporated the company, I think, in November 2014. So that it was a few months of iteration, then launching on Indiegogo, and then that's when we launched on Indiegogo. That was, when we got the cash influx, and we were able to say, okay, we're going to produce this, and we're going to ship out. I thought we shipped out 1,300 laptops in our first batch.
And just recently, you've received some extra funding. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we closed a $2 million funding round. A few months ago now. But that's really helped us to scale the business. And now we ship to 70 different countries. And we've we're in quite a few distributors now. So Adafruit and RS Components and so some other big ones that are coming out that I can't say just right now.
Okay. Well, that'll be on the next podcast. So I'm looking at the PiTop. What are in summary, what are the main things that you can do with it?
So, yeah, I mean, to start, it's a DIY laptop. So you actually build the thing yourself. You get it in a kit. No soldering is required. You just snap it all together. It's like kind of like a big Lego laptop. And the point about that is to really start you off by getting you to understand the basic architecture of a computer. So you first learn what bits connect to what bits and how they kind of talk to each other, and then you turn it on. So you literally get the kit in pieces, and then in about an hour or 2 hours, depending on how quickly you build it, you'll have a fully working laptop that's got a 13.3-inch HD screen and 12 hours of battery life on it. And
you were just showing me some of the ways that it can interact with the Raspberry Pi. So can you let us know about those as well?
So I think one of the most the sort of educational breakthrough that Raspberry Pi had is that it's a little computer that has these things called GPIO pins on them, and those are general purpose input-output pins. Now those pins let you connect to other hardware and control that other hardware with the Raspberry Pi. So with a PiTop, we have a modular rail, and that lets you snap all different types of add-on boards that can interact with the Raspberry Pi and the software that we build onto the PiTop. So for example, you can hook in an LED light array, and you can make like a really cool light show inside your PiTop. You can also pop in speakers that interact with like software like SonicPi on the Raspberry Pi, and that's a really cool piece of software that basically teaches you how to code through making music, and it's like hugely popular.
Yeah, I saw Dr. Sam Aaron, I believe, at Bettchat, and he was sort of pumping out the techno at about 10 o'clock in the morning, so that was lots of fun.
So, with a PiTop proto board, like a unicorn hat, which is the LED light array, and a couple of speakers, you can have your very own kind of like light show and cool music show inside the PiTop. It's a really cool way to actually see some like physical output to the code that you're actually doing. A lot of things right now are just sort of print hello world. Okay, I see hello world.
I mean, you used to be able to write boobies on a calculator and turn it upside down. So
that's about as technical as I got when I was 12.
So, yeah, this can do a lot more. So, yeah, I mean, for PiTop as well, who's your main customer?
So we have what we describe it as is kind of a beginner's device that can go up to a very advanced level. So we have two kind of main markets. One is the educational market. At its base, PiTop is a 200-pound laptop that will that will work just the same as any other laptop, but at the same time it can do so much more in the STEM and sort of STEAM activities in the classroom, and we make that easy. So we've seen that. Well, I mean, schools really like it basically because people are dying to find out, how can I teach STEM in the classroom? How can I actually make computing interesting? And we provide an ecosystem that just, bam, lets teachers, like, here's the pathways to actually show some really cool physical computing in the classroom. So that's one side of things. But then the other side of things are makers and hobbyists and people who just want to use the Raspberry Pi in a clean form factor that stays true to what Raspberry Pi is trying to do, and that is, let people have access to the computer, and that's why we have the acrylic slice in there. So every piece of the laptop is accessible, especially the Raspberry Pi. And so we have makers. We've made a heart monitor in here. That's just a cool example of what you can do inside the PiTop. It involves coding, real hardware skills, and then has a bit of a biology lesson in there. So the full STEM gambit. But we've had other people do some pretty amazing things with the unicorn hat. We've also got a lot of teachers, and a lot of teachers tend to be sort of really excellent hobbyists and makers. And they some of the things that they incorporate blow us away, especially. Shout out to Stuart Crouch. He's probably done some of the coolest things I've seen on Twitter, and he's incorporated some, just frankly, some things that we didn't even, like a fully fledged weather station with LED readouts and graphs going all across the screen. It's genuinely amazing what some people make with PiTop and Raspberry Pi.
And how do you find out about these teachers that are doing these amazing things with it?
Well, reach out to us through Twitter or on Facebook. It's been great to we go to a lot of events. So we went to BET 2016. We were actually at BET 2015, then came back for 16 and got a much bigger stand that year. It's just going to a lot of events, and like Raspberry Jams is what they call it, kind of like meetups for Raspberry Pi. And a huge amount of teachers actually come to these events. And in fact, before we even produced PiTop, we had gotten feedback from at least sort of 500 teachers that were giving us help on how to make this the computer for the classroom, and like the computer for makers, or the platform for makers, I should say. So in the UK and the US, we have about 500 schools now. So those are our two main countries. And that's pretty cool. In a year and a half to get that kind of pickup from schools is pretty huge. And we're getting so much good feedback from them, which has just let us improve our software offering. But over this next year, we're actually going out into a lot of educational, educationally specific distributors, and I think we're going to be in a lot more schools, I hope.
There's a kind of a mischievous look there, so hopefully that's good news. So if I'm an educator and I hold the budget for purchasing computing equipment for the school, and I have a limited budget and I'm looking at buying a whole load of iPads or a whole load of PiTops, what would your elevator pitch on that front be?
Yeah, so in terms of my elevator pitch on that one, iPads are pretty singular use. Against iPads, it's kind of unfair because basically they're PDF machines. They cost quite a lot of money. You have to buy a bumper for them. Kids don't actually learn very much from them because it's meant to be a magic box. Whereas with PiTop, it's cheaper than an iPad, but your students are going to be way more engaged with the computing curriculum with a PiTop, because you get so many visual outputs and instant sort of like really cool but instant outputs. That's something pretty amazing. In terms of the affordability of PiTop, we do, the desktop is, it's $299, about £200. Now the very cool thing, the laptop is, the desktop is £99, and that includes a Raspberry Pi 3 and an SD card, and that's got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on it, all for £99 with a 14-inch HD screen. Now the cool thing about both the laptop and the desktop is that when a new Raspberry Pi comes out, you can just take the old Raspberry Pi out and put the new one in. So you can upgrade your entire laptop fleet or your entire desktop fleet for $35 a unit. So we are more affordable at the outset, but then as time goes on, we become the most affordable device by a long stretch. And the thing is, when you take your old Raspberry Pi out, you can turn that into like some sort of IoT controller. You could turn it into a weather station, a ham radio. Like there's a million and one uses for your old Raspberry Pi. So you're not actually wasting any of the electronics that you go through. And that is a pretty cool concept, I think. Also with specifically the PiTop, if you break the screen, well, it's a modular laptop. You just have to replace the screen. It's $45 replacement. If you break the Pi, that's $35. Break the keyboard, $15. So it's just way more. Like, there's a reason we talk to so many teachers, and that's because they told us all these problems with things like iPads. You drop it once, and a lot of times it doesn't even matter if you have the big bumper on it. There's a good chance it's gonna break and result in buying a whole new device, which is pretty wasteful, but also pretty expensive.
Okay, and for 2016, 2017, what's the big focus? Like, where are you going to go over these next months? Is it about internationalization, or just keeping your head down and going after those education and maker markets?
Yeah. Well, it's about a lot of things, really. The main focus, now that we have a laptop and we have a desktop that we're shipping out on the 25th of May, that's our two sort of big feature products finished. So the next focus is all about content. So Ceed Universe, for example, our game that teaches you how to code and how to build real electronics, and those electronics that you build for the game actually interact with the game and help you out. So it's going to be a lot about adding more content to that game, and actually accrediting our content through educational examining bodies. So what we don't want to do is just make some software and say, hey, this is really good, trust us. We have a lot of teachers that will have great reviews, lots of feedback from teachers. But what we wanted to do was also accredit all of that work, essentially. Getting the certification that says, yes, this is actually a game that you can use in the classroom for the computing curriculum. And we should have that pretty soon.
And which organization will that be through as well?
Well, that'll be where we've decided to go through the OCR route, and that's because they already use Raspberry Pi in their computing curriculum, and they've got quite a forward-thinking way of specifically dealing with us, and I think they've been a lot of help so far, and that should be. I'm pretty excited about it, because we would be one of the first, if not maybe the first game accredited for use in schools for the computing curriculum, which would be a big step forward.
And so I'm obviously detecting an accent there.
Yeah.
So what brings you and what brings PiTop to Bethnal Green, especially as well?
Yeah. So I was born in South Africa. I lived there for 5-6 years, and then moved to Texas. My dad's Texan and my mom's Scottish, so it's a way longer story as to why we ended up in South Africa. But then we moved to Texas, and then I started going to boarding school in the UK in Somerset.
Wow! So you're a cider drinker?
Not personally, but I know a lot that are. But yeah, I went to boarding school from age 13 here in the UK, and always intended to leave. And then I moved to London, and I loved it so much that I stayed.
And Bethnal Green, especially? Yeah,
well, Bethnal Green, we're in as you said at the start, a renovated MOT building. It's we're a team of engineers. We do welding in here, and we solder in here, and do a whole bunch of stuff that wouldn't be okay for a normal office. Bethnal Green's a fantastic place to do this kind of stuff.
Cool. So, obviously one of the distinguishing factors about PiTop is the cost, because it is, much more accessible than a lot of other devices out there. How do you go about actually getting to that price point?
Yeah. So that's one of those $1 million questions that we've had to answer. It's a lot of hard work, basically. The way because we wanted to offer super affordable solutions to schools. I call it like frugalvation, innovation through frugality, and that just involves you really have to choose the right chipsets. You really have to. Ryan, my co-founder, has lived over in Shenzhen now for 9 months. He's from Manchester. Like the first time that he ate sushi in Japan, he got a nosebleed. So this is the kind of so he's really basically changed his whole lifestyle so that we can actually deliver this product. And having him on the ground over there lets us get intimate knowledge of the supply side market over there, and lets us choose the right type of components. So there's over 400 components that go into PiTop, and we choose, vet, and test every single one of those components ourselves. So no OEM manufacturing, and that actually is probably the reason why we're able to keep it this low in terms of price is because we do everything ourselves, and so we can just 100% know what we're putting into the laptop, how much it costs, and how many bits we need to order in order to keep the cost at the super affordable end of the scale, especially with the desktop. When you're making a $100 desktop, literally every penny counts, and so specifically like the hinge that we made for the desktop is like a total revolution in hinge making technology, because it is an extremely affordable hinge, but it's...
Have you patented the hinge?
We'll see. We'll see if it's worthy of a patent, but in general we're anti-patent. And
then the casings are 3D printed.
Yeah, it's 3D printable. The case is injection molded because we want everybody to have just a fantastic out of the box experience. You can 3D print the case as well. That's still kind of in development, simply because it is quite a. It's not a beginner project to print a laptop case. It's certainly a lot easier with things with larger printers, but we're currently trying to make it print sort of very easy to print on all Ultimaker devices, because they're just really great, and Ultimaker's fantastic in the education space in schools, and yeah, we've been I'm just a big fan of that particular company.
Okay, fantastic. So it's Friday, so what's the plan now? Do you get to relax, or are you a sort of startup fiend where you don't go to sleep?
Yeah, the latter is true. Not unfortunately. I think the thing is that I'm doing exactly what it is I want to do. It's like, when you're 12 and you're trying to figure out what you want to do later in life. There's no, it wasn't possible back then, because I didn't know that I didn't know I could do what it is I wanted to do, basically. So it doesn't really feel like work for me. I work all the time. And what's a Friday evening look like for me? I'm basically gonna just keep doing research, and I do a lot of research and a lot of future planning. We're about to ship out the next product on the 25th, so yeah, I think I have very few weekends. I'm trying to make it sound more glamorous, but that's just the way it is. Loving what you do
is a good place to start, isn't it? So
well, it's the place to start. If you don't start like that, then you can't put in the time required to like really make something new, and you won't end up succeeding. So just do what you want to do, and then it doesn't feel like work, and then you can work all the time.
So if anyone wants to get in contact to find out more, or if they work within a school, or if they are a maker enthusiast, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so we are on Twitter. You can tweet us at @getpitop, so that's at GETPI-TOP. And then we've got a Facebook. Just hop onto Google and type in PiTop, PI-TOP. Or you can email us at support@pitop.com. And that's support how it's spelt, and then PiTop with the hyphen.com.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me here, Jesse, and enjoy your research this evening.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks. Thanks for coming.
Thanks a lot. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening, and please do send me your comments on the episode to the edtech podcast @gmail.com. And you can leave a review on the iTunes podcast site if you so wish. Next up is Evgeny Shadchev, CEO Makers Academy, where you can find out what ties together gongs, coding, Nerf guns and highly skilled young people.
Bye-bye!